Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February 8th East Lansing Planning Commission meeting. Mr. Menzer, would you please call the roll?
I would be happy to. Chair Sullivan.
Here.
Vice Chair Bowman.
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
Commissioner Lapine is absent this evening. Commissioner Wagner.
Here.
Commissioner Hendricks is expected but not yet here. Commissioner Boyd is absent this evening. Commissioner Denault.
Here.
We have 5 in attendance. That is a quorum for the meeting.
All right. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Chair Bowman and seconded by Commissioner Williams. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the January 25th, 23 Planning Commission meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Denault. Is there a second?
A second.
Seconded by Commissioner Wagner. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, the ayes have it. On to item number 2, committee reports. I don't believe we have any of those tonight. Number 3, staff reports. Mr. Menzer?
Hey, good evening. So just a couple things to run through tonight. The Planning Commission last met on Wednesday, January 25. Since that time, Council met on February 7, which was last night in this room. I was here and happy to report on what happened. Recently, the Commission held a public hearing and heard from applicants related to the Attesteo project at 3410 West Road. That project, the site plan, was approved by Council last night with the conditions that the Planning Commission recommended. So that will be moving on to the building permit stage. So that project made its way through the city process and been moving on to building permits. And actually the president of Attesteo, so this would be the first location for Attesteo in North America. The president was here in the room last night to introduce himself to Council, and they're excited to be here. And it's it's not my position to judge projects, but it's pretty cool to have this new company here in the city. On February 14th in this room, Council will have a discussion-only meeting. And one of the topics of that meeting will be the Crown Castle small cell 5G installation. So to date, there still have been no applications received by the city to install these units, but the representatives from the company will be here to talk about the project, the scope of the project, answer questions from council, surely answer questions from other people. That would be February 14 here in this room at 7 o'clock. On the same topic, Crown Castle will be holding an independent public meeting, a public informational meeting, in this room on February 27, and that's from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. So that's a non-city-affiliated event. It's run by Crown Castle, but it's an informational meeting for residents to attend and learn more about their proposals. And for any of information related to that topic, and I bring it up just because it has been kind of a hot button topic in the community, you can, I think the fastest way is to Google East Lansing 5G small cell. The first result is the city's homepage that we've set up as kind of an informational clearinghouse on that item. So on that website, you can find the map that we've seen on the proposal, and then some links to some contacts for the company that's proposing this project. So you'll find all that there. Looking ahead, Planning Commission meets again on the 22nd of February. The items on that agenda as of now would be potential action on the 2 items that we have public hearings scheduled for tonight. Of course, that'll be dictated by the conversation this evening. 2 items are scheduled for public hearings this evening and potentially could be on for a recommendation. Planning Commission is the advisory for these 2 proposals this evening. They advise City Council on direction. City Council makes the final actions on that. So that will be on February 22, again, depending on how this goes to this evening. I don't have any new land use applications in the pipeline. So in the immediate term, in terms of agenda content, we're planning on bringing back the Shaping the Avenue, continuing on the journey together, the Shaping the Avenue project, and then also getting into the master plan. So this is the time to start the master plan process. I think we just need to talk scope, big picture, how we see that thing proceeding for the rest of the year here. And then just one other item. So last week, we appreciated all your comments on the Valley Court Pavilion project. That we are planning on bringing that to City Council at their discussion-only meeting on March 14. And the intent of that would be for discussion only, not for action, not as part of the site plan. This is purely at this point, we have assembled quite a bit of community conversation on this and feedback. And really, I think it's time to determine direction, whether or not do we proceed with this as council supportive of the general direction that we're going in? Do they want to see some tweaks based on the feedback? So that'll kind of be the penultimate determining meeting for where that goes. So that's all I've got, and certainly available to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Menzer. Any questions from commissioners? Okay, just wanted to note for the minutes that Commissioner Hendricks arrived at 7:08. And that brings us to item number 4 on the agenda, commissioner announcements. Are there any commissioner announcements tonight?
I could talk about the CDBG real quickly.
Oh, sure, please do.
So we met and we we made our recommendations to council, although we haven't made those official yet. So I think at the end of the month we can share exactly where we've made suggestions for funding, and it was more competitive than I thought it was going to be. It was there are amazing projects going on. So I guess maybe in two weeks or 4 weeks I can give an update of our recommendations. But it was a worthwhile project. I think it was fun to be on this subcommittee.
Thank you. I appreciate the update. Item number 5, communication from citizens. I see that we've received 3 separate written communications, 2 for the Valley Court Park proposal and 1 for item 6.1 on the agenda tonight. On to item number 5.2, verbal communication from the audience. This is typically for items that are not on the upcoming agenda. However, you're free to present your discussion at any moment tonight. Are there any members of the audience wishing to address the commission? There's a daddy-daughter dance going on tonight, so. All right. Seeing no members of the audience coming forward, is there any members of the public online on the queue?
We have one member, Mr. Gentilozzi. Mr. Gentilozzi, I have unmuted you and allowed you to speak.
I am here to speak on the public hearing for item 6.2.
Thank you.
All right. That brings us on to item number 6, public hearings. Item 6.1 is consideration of a modified cluster development and site plan application to construct 4 3-unit attached dwellings on the 7.2 acre central area of the Falcon Pointe Development located on the south side of State Road, west of Chandler Road. Taylor, all right, thank you.
All right. Everybody hear me? Excellent. Okay, so before us, we have a request for site plan approval for modified cluster development and site plan approval to construct 4 3-unit attached single-story 2-bedroom dwellings on the vacant manufactured housing lots in the center area of Falcon Pointe. That area is approximately 7.2 acres. It's located in between Thoroughbred Lane and Halter Lane. The subject of the property is zoned R2. These 12 dwellings would add to the previously constructed 120 dwellings of a similar design on the eastern portion of Falcon Pointe. Those were constructed in 2015. They have proposed to remove a covered mailbox cluster with 8 parking spaces at the northeast corner of Thoroughbred Lane and Quarter Horse Road, the intersection, and then deconstruct that structure and move that mailbox cluster to the southeast corner of Palomino Drive and Thoroughbred Lane to serve those 12 new units. They propose to relocate without relocating the parking spaces that are also in that area or the structure. So it's a downsizing in that mailbox structure system that exists now. And you can see those clearly in the photos attached in the site plan. The overall, the memo shows existing land use map, zoning, current zoning, which is R2, and future zoning, which is R1. And then it compares what cluster development overlay does as well. That's just to review what the staff memo talks about, but I'll go a little bit into the history of the site itself. So in 1998, the subject property was acquired as a part of a larger 260-acre land transfer by the City of East Lansing in a 425 agreement with DeWitt Township. So it included both Falcon Pointe and Hawk Nest. Previously to the acquisition, the annexation, Falcon Pointe was approved for 280 manufactured housing units on the lot, and it was zoned for a mobile home park district. In 2002, it was rezoned to R2. And then in 2009, an ordinance was passed to create the cluster development plan overlay, which allows for flexibility in site design and lot size, things like that. That can be overlaid over R1 and R2 districts. Primarily the difference between that the cluster development plan allows is it primarily allows for the development of multifamily homes and townhomes in the area, whereas R2 doesn't allow for those types of housing. So that's the biggest difference between which the overlay allows. In 2016, FP Investors received approval for a phased cluster development plan for site condominium development for 253 units on that 55.7 acre site, so the total site. In 2015, the eastern site was developed. In I believe 2016, so a subsequent year, the 102 units of the single family dwellings on the western side were developed. And then in March of 2021, the central area of the lot, so you have the eastern and the western area, the central area was not developed and primarily reserved for the pre-existing manufactured houses from before the acquisition, or before the annexation, when those are pre-existing from 1998. And currently there remains 16 of those. There used to be 31, but they have decreased in number over time. So the southern portion of that central area is where the development is being proposed tonight. In 2021, this same exact development was proposed, those 12 units, and given approval. The approval expired in 2022, March of 2022, and so they've resubmitted with a modification to, as I discussed earlier, of the location of that clustered mailbox and the size of it, primarily. So, in terms of meeting the standards of review for both the overlay and the R2 district and general site plans, it meets all of those. And staff does recommend that that they require in the repurposing of and relocation, the demolition and the relocation of the mailbox cluster. We recommend that they don't have to recreate the structure that they're demolishing, but that they do include parking spaces along that mailbox cluster for access to that mailbox for those 12 residents. Are there any questions?
Thank you for that overview, Taylor. Commissioners?
Just one. Just to your last point, you noted in your report that you'd like to see the parking placed. Is there a dearth of parking in the area, or is it just sort of, is the count going to be reduced below what would typically be expected, or why?
In 2020, their approval included those parking spaces, and so it seems to be a downgrade from what they previously proposed. So we view it as access to the mailbox, and it's located near the entrance of the development. The main entrance. There's several entrances to the development, but it's near the main entrance. And so accessing that mailbox, we felt would be benefited by parking spaces as they had previously, in the previous approval in 2020 proposed.
So it's a condition of a previous approval?
It was part of the site plan approved, yes.
Taylor, just had a couple questions.
Yes.
I understand that the male location is going to be relocated to the north. Is that fundamentally going to be the same size or a similar structure? You don't want them to relocate the structure. What do you have in mind for that structure?
They plan to create a mailbox cluster, which is of a, currently they have the mailbox cluster under a structure, but they propose to relocate a similar mailbox size to serve those 12 residents, which you can imagine. I believe there's some photos of them in the site plan, but they're the larger metal boxes that have smaller mailbox cubbies. And those are those are also located in other areas throughout the development that serve the other rentals in the area. So it's a similar system that already exists and is serving other rentals in the area.
And then to clarify, with the exception of the mailboxes and things like grading, are there any fundamental changes that are being made to the site there, with the exception of the new buildings?
There's just the removal of standard vegetation for development and things like that. The site was previously developed or prepared for development when the other site plans were approved in 2015, 2016.
Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, on to the applicant. I believe we have FP Investors here, Mr. Dean Matsudo. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Brad Freeman, a partner in the development. So, yeah, as kind of stated, we had gotten a approval for this plan. Unfortunately, as we all know, the pandemic happened. It's kind of why we tabled it. Then to come find out that it expired. So we have made a modification, such as the mailbox, which I think prior to us noticing, we realized the structure itself was oversized for the amount of units, the 12 units. In addition, it was a structure existing from when it was a mobile home park, and that's where the size obviously made sense. So when we resubmitted, the thought was we can go to the standard boxes that are already existing and just keep them along the row without the parking. Just to have 12 mailboxes there, we didn't think parking was necessary. So.
I just have one real quick. So is there a specific target demographic these are marketed to? Is this designed to be senior housing or any other?
We've seen kind of a variety. It's everyone from an empty nester to a young professional. It kind of, I guess, leans more towards the empty nester. It's a first floor product with a garage, attached garage, two-car attached garage. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a product for everyone. Yeah, that's kind of what we're anticipating.
Understood. Any additional questions? Thank you for your time. And then I do have one card in front of me that I misread. So, Mr. Mitsudo, would you like to address the commission? Oh, and we are at this point we are opening the public hearing to take comments from the public.
Okay. Hi, I'm Dean Matsudo. I'm the homeowner of 3977 Halter Lane. I just want to recognize the committee here is from Falcon Pointe, and they represent many of the homeowners that reside there and are considered senior citizens. Okay. From my understanding, that park area was originally detailed and outlined as to be a modular or mobile home park. And that's what this community invested in and has fond memories and also significant financial investment into it. So the points that I will raise are my points, specifically for myself, but many of the members there share a common view, okay? So first of all, what I'm concerned about is a bigger picture, that this park continues to have land eroded away, taken by multifamily units that are not necessarily senior citizens. And, you know, when this community here invested into it, that's what the belief they were under. I don't feel that we're opposed to having other community members on vacant lots, but I think that there should be some concern over how the land is going to be used and specifically stated for that use. Because you asked what community will be in there. And when I look around East Lansing, you see vacant opportunities for people to move, but there is a limited resource of senior citizens' homes, especially with financial limitations. So the greater concern is a bigger picture of how can we invest into the community, creating a secure environment and secure place for these people to live the rest of their lives out and be in comfort. In March of 2022, FP investors sent a letter, well, actually, quite frankly, they sent a demand for possession, termination of tenancy to the residents, which stated the cause for is the reason is change in the use of substantial nature of the mobile park home, okay? Which I don't think the Planning Commission approved that. So this notification went out without approval of this Planning Commission. That letter created a lot of emotional and financial concern, plus involved families being moved. So that tension, that stress was undue and unwanted. The other thing is that later in fall of 2022, I don't have the specific date, but I did receive a letter. They said that FP investors rescinded their mind and no longer plan to make any changes. So we sit here as a group of homeowners not knowing what are the plans, how can we be safe and secure, and also where will that future go to? Because currently, none of the homeowners have leases, not to my knowledge. I do not have a lease. And under what I submitted in the letter, I believe that the state of Michigan states there is a requirement for a lease. And also, the notification really did not provide an accurate cause for termination. So there's two things that really stand out is, how do we feel secure, especially with people of the senior citizen nature with financial resources that might be limited? So we had a representative that was not able to make it tonight, but we're asking, can we be honest and truthful with FMP financial investors so that we know where our future will be, okay? Because currently, without knowing the plans, it continues to erode the senior citizen community and also significantly decreases the value of these homes. Because if we were asked to vacate, these homes cannot move. Many of us pay taxes because there's a fixed structure called a garage that we pay taxes to. That cannot be moved. The modular homes cannot be moved. Some might be able to move, but due to the age and nature of construction, I think it would be far beyond the cost of reasonable movement. And the other thing too, it would require the community to purchase new land that they would need to move this modular home or mobile home to, which is another stressful and again, unsure future. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with an unsecure future, no lease, no projection. We are willing to talk to FMP investors to try to come up with resolutions, but each of us have different concerns. Each of us have different financial situation. So as for myself, as I stated in my letter, I'd be glad to review any of the options of purchasing the land, selling the house, or ensuring that there is some type of guaranteed lease so that I can know where my future will lie and feel comfortable. So it's not that I'm opposed to new construction. What I'm worried about is the erosion of the community in a negative way that will impact us with an unsure future. And because as I looked at the plans, it continues to say there's vacant space, there's some additional vacant space. Will there be a request for more development in the future? And is FMP investors going to eventually say, we need you to leave, and then we have to abandon our houses? But more importantly, if we need to abandon our houses, who's responsible for the removal costs? And where does that bear upon ourselves? So if FMP would be truthful, honest, and forthright, and give us an opportunity to look at it, we may turn and become supportive of different events. But at this point in time, with the unsecure future, it's hard to be supportive and really encourage growth that might be beneficial. But we want to negotiate, and that's where I feel that if we could negotiate and set some secure action, we would be more than willing to talk about it. So, do you have any questions for myself? I hope I made. Does anybody say? Oh. Thank you for your time. Yeah.
So I just wanted to get what your take on the current situation is that your understanding was that, because when I visited the site, it looks to me like it's already serviced with utilities that just aren't being used yet, that like sewer is run there and water is already run to the site. So the expectation is that those sites were going to be used somehow, that not as a park. But that so what I understand what you just said is that your expectation initially was that those would be filled with modular homes.
Well, when the original plans, as stated, it was supposed to be a modular home park. Right.
What you seem to be suggesting then is that replacing the modular units with the units that are being proposed is going to somehow adversely affect the value of your property? Is that, again, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm just curious if that's what you were saying.
Well, this becomes a whole rental unit community, and I'm not sure exactly what will occur with the value of the homes. That's not my expertise, but right now, if I were to try to sell up my home without proper disclosure that there was an attempt to have us evicted from our homes, we don't own the land, so and also that there's been rescinded, the value of the house does not contain its value, in my opinion. Because I think it would be foolish for anyone to invest into a home not knowing what the future would be. So my house, though it might have a market value as believed just based upon the premise, I don't think anybody would be able to purchase at market value, because especially without a lease or some type of guarantee.
I guess I did misunderstand you then, so thank you for clarifying that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Williams?
I also drove through the area today, and it looked to me, and drove by your home, Mr. Macedo, and I noticed there were several garages in that area of the development. I'm wondering, have you ever had a lease on that property?
Never.
Do you know whether any of your neighbors have ever had a lease?
My neighbors are here.
What is the arrangement? Is there any arrangement? It's month-to-month lot rent arrangement? Yep.
When I purchased the home, the manager of the community at Falcon Pointe, I sent him an email, said, hey, we're invested in purchasing this home. And I read over the rules and guidelines, and it said that the community, Falcon Pointe community, the management of it, had the right to purchase, the first rights to purchase that home. And he, at that point in time, said, we're not interested in purchasing a home. I have emails that exchange that, and that we'll just go on a month-to-month lease. I said, great, send me a copy of the lease. No lease was ever sent. Sent it a number of times through email, and also I paid monthly, and on each payment, I put a note in there that said, I would like a copy of the lease. And after 6 months of them cashing my check, I still am, and it's been over a year, I'm still without a lease.
Just one more question. Did anything change when you built the garage, or did everything happen
The
at the
garage
same
was
time?
already part of the structure.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So, and because of the nature of the construction, it is not on a mobile type of structure. It is a poured foundation that has
I
been.
noticed that.
Yeah, and so making it the way it's constructed, there's no feasible way. And I guess if, who assumes the responsibility of demolition if I'm being evicted and the burden of that? Or how can we negotiate this? My best interest, and I talked to Brad previously before this meeting, is we want to be forthright and we want to everyone has a different situation, but we want to buy either the land or have them purchase the house or work some type of agreement that will be in the best thing for the community. And what I'm fearful is that if the community continues to change, what will be our rent in the future? Where will it stop at? Because I've heard, and it was on national news, that mobile park rent has increased substantially. Renting around the whole nation has gone up since COVID. But being on a limited budget, that's not easy to absorb those costs. And, Social Security doesn't go up, not at the rate that, and also the economy has food prices and everything else, including energy, going up. So as I stated, I'm not opposed to development. I'm just looking for a secure future so that we know where we can plan to be able to enjoy our future life.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Real quick.
Yes.
So I think that this is helpful context, and I appreciate you coming up here and explaining this situation. I'm just trying to look at this through the lens here of our purview on this planning commission. So just to kind of reiterate some of Vice Chair Bowman's points, am I to understand that essentially your support of any proposal such as this is conditional on the issues that you described with the land and with your usage of the units on your land and your month-to-month situation?
Most definitely, yeah.
Okay. Is there anything about the particular units that they're proposing that you find offensive, or is it purely?
Well, okay, this is my opinion, and because I've heard it from individuals. This original plan was previously approved and supported by the community. Am I wrong or right? The community supported it. They thought it was a good thing. They thought that they could feel safe and secure, and additional housing and occupants in the area would be just another benefit. But at this point in time, that letter threatening, eviction just changed everything in my view, and just really, I don't know what the word would be appropriate to say, but it's just a huge distaste in my mouth. There's nothing more that, it's like, how do we react to this? Because we have no means to react to this. We can't sell the house, we can't move the house, we can't do anything, we're just stuck in limbo land. So if we can come to agreement, maybe I definitely would be more supportive of it, but right now, this is the only thing that I can hold against them to start giving us some answers.
Understood, and thank you so much for that
Sure.
clarification. Yes, could you come up and please fill out a card with your personal information for the minutes?
I'm Mary Ann Rommel, and we live on 446 West Palomino Drive. After we got the letter in March, we decided we couldn't take any more. Because in 15, when they were going to start all of this, we are located across from their office in Pasture, I believe is the name of the road. They want to put another section in there of duplexes. Our house was preventing that. at the time, they wanted to try to buy us out, but we were going through a bankruptcy. And we could accept no more than what we owed on the house. And it would go into the bankruptcy. So we'd have nothing, we'd be on the street. And they kind of went around us and stuff, finally told us we could stay. Well, now we get this. And we said, we know it's not gonna let us stay. So we had a friend of ours had decided he wanted to buy our house and move it up to Higgins Lake. Well, when he started looking into it, he couldn't get anyone to move the house. So we backed away from the sale. And then at the time, we had already started the wheels in motion. And in June, the end of June, we moved into an apartment. And so we were paying rent on both places, double utilities, all this stuff. We did not get to speak to them at all until we had a person had come forward and wanted to buy our house. We had all the information given out to him as to what we were going through, and he says, I'll have it paid for in 3 years. So we had written up, he was a realtor also. He had just a simple thing written up and we had it notarized that what he was gonna pay us per month, he was gonna give us the rent, but since we are the owners, we were gonna pay the rent, keeping it in our name until he owned until he has it paid for, and then we would give him the title. Well, as soon as they found this out, their lawyers wrote up a thing and says, this is illegal, you can't do this, you can't sublease. Well, in our words, we didn't feel like we were subleasing anything. We were letting them live there until they could pay for it, and we were still owners. They gave him 1 week to get out of the house. So in the meantime, they've tried to negotiate a little bit with us. We told them what we were going to be getting. We told them $40,000 we wanted for the house. He says, well, that sounds like within a reason. They came back and told us, we'll give you 25. You're gonna probably need a new roof. You're gonna need new carpet in your house, and the walls probably will wanna be painted. So we'll give you 25,000. Well, it's really a slap in the face for what we just paid the mortgage off in April. So, I mean, we were still paying on the mortgage when we got that letter. So now we're in the process. They've had a inspector come out since, and now they're trying to nitpick down even more. The inspector, in his letter, had said the roof is a 30-year roof. The house is 17, 18 years old. It might have a few shingles that have lifted a little bit, need to be blackjacked down. It doesn't need a new roof to take $10,000 off of the value of our house. But they're trying to nitpick it down even more right now, and we're in a limbo waiting for them. They told us for January not to pay the rent because we had a verbal agreement. Okay, January we did not pay the rent. Now February is here and we haven't paid the rent. We don't know what's going on at this point. What's going to happen if they're going to knock us down even more? But we had the letter, that second letter that they had sent out saying that we didn't have to terminate at this time, but it says, while the termination deadline has been placed on a temporary hold. It doesn't say they're not going to terminate. And what I have heard in my years of talking to this other person that they've had representing them, they don't want to sell the land to anyone, any one of us. Because we had told them we'd buy the land, and they don't want that. So I'm scared for everyone at this point. And if they're treating us like this, us being the first ones, what are they going to do? I mean, they're going to turn around right now, and they're going to rent it out. And within 2 years, they'll have $42,000 out of our house just renting it out. But they told us, well, you realize to take out a loan, it's going to cost us 5%, 5 or 7% now. And it's like, well, we've been paying 7% on our loan since we owned it. So this is our side of it. We are in a limbo outside of the house, paying double right now, waiting for things to happen and hoping they're not going to knock us down even more. It's affecting our health, and we've lost everything. We had no idea that we were going to have to move, and we didn't have any plans to move. I mean, after they told us 5 years ago we could stay, my husband built me my rose garden that I had wanted. I had over 70 rose bushes in front and on the side of my house. I didn't want to leave that and go into an upstairs apartment that is hard to climb the steps and take on less than what I had because it's forced on me. We didn't want that, but we had no choice. And we can't afford anything better. That's what I have to say. Like I say, our situation is a little different than theirs because they are still there. And they want to keep their homes. And I knew, regardless, they were going to want us out. So that's why we decided to move. So, protect them. And I just want them to be fair to us. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, please. Yeah, could you please say your name when you get up there and then fill out a card for our minutes? Thank you.
Hi, so my name is Salomon Rodesno. I live in 3979 Thoroughbred Lane, and these are my neighbors. I'm in a different situation. I'm a doctoral student at Michigan State University. I'm in my second year, and my partner and I moved from Cleveland, Ohio to East Lansing, Michigan for me to start my program. It's a 5.5-year program, and when we talked to the folks at Falcon Pointe, we were excited to learn that there was an opportunity to rent a manufactured home. We had to look that up because we didn't know what a manufactured home was. And we were excited to learn when our first visit that we would be very close to folks who also own their property, but also were renting. So we have a mixed community of folks of all ages, different backgrounds. Fast forward to March, and I went up there not knowing that there was some process, but I want you actually to pass down those documents that I shared up on that table, because those were the actual letters that we received around March. This was something that wasn't mailed to us, it was taped to our doors. You also have in front of you the letter that we got in October. The third and last document, the heavier one, is my lease, the one my partner and I signed. We were excited to learn from the renters or the folks that manage the leasing company that we were going to be here for a very long time. My program is 5.5 years, and so we were not wanting to move again. So you can imagine getting a letter like this in March and having my neighbors also receive that letter in March, knowing that we had to move in the cold. Most of us were sick too with COVID. Others were sick with other illnesses. But receiving a letter like this added to not only just an instant that this has happened, but this has happened before to other folks. The people that you see here have also been witnessed and subjected to patterns of behavior of being asked to leave or asking to be put into limbo. So these letters aren't just something that happened in 2022. They've happened multiple times. And there's coverage of it in the Lansing City Journal. Did I get that right? There you go. See, I'm learning these things. But that's one of the excitement that I had coming here to East Lansing and living and moving my whole family. What was not exciting was receiving a letter like this. I've been talking about living in this area, being excited about it, and not feeling super excited about it anymore. I'm excited about none of us having to move, but not excited that we still don't have any leases. That is the only lease I have right now. And so while these new apartments might come with leases, my question is, what about the other folks? Whether you're renting or you're owning and you're renting the land, we need something. And the reason why I wanted you to see these and touch them and move them around was because these are part of just the latest pattern of behavior. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me and to see that there are a variety of us living in different situations. But I think it was important for you all to touch the documents that we all received. Thank you.
Oh, just a moment, please.
Oh yeah, I do need that back, so.
Just before then, please. Since oftentimes when letters like that become part of sort of our deliberations, they're provided in the packet that we read before the meeting, and that's fine that you didn't get them to us before then. Would you mind just giving us a brief synopsis so that we can get an understanding about what you're talking about, and then perhaps it could be included in next week's packet if that's appropriate?
Sure.
Just a quick.
Sure.
Yep. Thank
There are
you.
two documents, one dated March, one dated October. The March letter is the notice of eviction and the timeline that we were given. October, or sorry, the other way around. Then the second letter is a notice of us not having to move. And so those are two documents. The third is my lease. And so for that, do you want me to go into details?
No, thank you.
So it's a lease. Those are the three documents that you have in front of you.
And you didn't mention the dates, March 2021?
Whoever has that document in front of them could read
Thanks.
that date for me, please. Thank you.
Looks like it's March 11th of 2023.
3. And then October of 22.
October 26th of 22, correct.
That's,
And I guess before I leave, does anyone else have any letters that we should?
Can I ask a quick question? So on the lease that you signed, was that a year-to-year lease or the thick document that you had?
Mhm.
Is it a?
Year to year, with the
Year-to-year.
understanding that my program is 5.5 years, and I'd be there. We wouldn't have moved all of our belongings to a place where we had to move again. So, yeah.
Okay.
2 years?
5.5.
5.5 years.
Oh, sorry, no, my program is 5.5 years now.
How long is
My
it?
lease is a year. Year to year. But I don't have a lease right now, just like all of it.
Any other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Williams?
Just to follow up, you just said you don't have a lease, so there's no clause in there that at the end of the term, at the end of the year, that without notice it carries over for an additional one-year term?
We don't know. I mean, that's something that my partner and I looked into. I'm fortunate to have Michigan State's law clinic. They call it something different, but it's something that I was going to work and use my resources as a graduate student there, because we feel that it's a weird place to be in, not knowing whether we are going to be kicked out as renters the following month, or right now we're hoping that doesn't happen, and it doesn't seem like it. But it would give me more confidence having something that is more written in paper. I've been a renter all my life, and this is my first time ever not having a lease. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Please. And be sure to state your name and fill out a card for the minutes, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Erica Marsden. I'm a resident at Falcon Pointe. After hearing everyone speak, I thought I should get up and share my story with you because my circumstances, I think, are a little along the same lines, but slightly different. We relocated from California after the passing of my mother-in-law in October of 2021, excuse me. So we came out here. We had been in contact with Falcon Pointe because we purchased our home from the seller. And to move into the park, we had to go through the process of filling out the application and background checks. So that was all approved. They understood that we were buying the home from the elderly lady, and she wanted to move closer to her family. And that part of our purchase agreement was that she would remain in the home until she could find an apartment closer. So we have family in the area, we're from Michigan, but, so it was okay for us to stay with family until we could move into the home. And we had been in contact with Falcon Pointe. Everything was okay. They said, when you come to Michigan, you can sign the lease, no problem. So we moved into the state, back into the state in January, contacted Falcon Pointe and said, the owner of the home has not found housing yet, so we are giving her time and space to find that. And we're not comfortable signing the lease until we sign the purchase agreement for the property. And Falcon Pointe was like, that's fine, not a problem, just contact us when that's done. So in the middle of March, we were able to move into the home. I went down to sign the lease, and they told us that the lease wasn't ready yet. They were changing some wording in there, and they would contact us when the lease was ready. I thought that was a little strange, but okay. So then I reached back out, and at that point, our neighbors had said, hey, welcome to the neighborhood, we're being evicted. That was a little shocking because I had been in contact since October of the previous year. They knew I was purchasing the property, and I can't help but think that they had already in their plans knew that they were going to be evicting or trying to evict the seniors, and myself included at that time. So I still don't have a lease, and I'm worried and I'm frustrated. I care deeply about people, and I'm really concerned about the senior citizens as well, and myself too. We've all invested a lot of money and time and energy. We want to have a wonderful community to live in. It's nice. We like it there. It's wonderful. So my biggest concern is what's going to happen in the future for us. Can they come back later and evict us? And what would that look like? We've all made major investments into the properties, and because you can't really move those structures. They're on permanent foundations, and you cannot move garages. So our property values are going to decrease dramatically, and what are we going to be left with? I'm younger than the senior citizens that live there, so I might have a little bit more time to make some more money, but people that are on fixed incomes, what are they going to do? And I don't think that we're opposed to having more structures in place with development and housing and more renting there, but I think we want to make sure that we're secure in where our place is. So I think that's pretty much, I just wanted to share what was happening with me personally. So, and my biggest concerns about the future for us. I have children, and I'm not the only young person that lives there too. So we just want to make sure that one is well taken care of. Do you have any questions for me?
Nope. Thank you for your time. Are there any other members of the public that wish to come forward? Seeing none? Oh. Sure. Thank you. Mr. Mitsudo.
Just one final statement. I really feel that, I was looking back at my personal notes, and I did send a complaint to the Attorney General's office. And as I look back, I cited a couple of things that I put in my letter to you. But right now, the Falcon Pointe investors are also in violation of my belief of the Truth in Lending Act, because they haven't been forthright and honest, and we're without a lease. So I guess I see this as a means that if it continues on, we will be remaining in limbo and just held in jeopardy. This is our only regress, to have some type of hold so that progress can be made for our concerns. And if you approve it, which I know it's been approved in the past, and the significant change is the plans, other than mailbox, all seem to be the same. It was previously approved, so what prevents you from approving it again? Not the structure, not the planning, not any of that. But what does it do to the community when you leave occupants in jeopardy? And this is what the Planning Commission, when I was looking at the bylaws, it says that you have a stake in the community and the well-being of the community. And that decisions should be made beyond, on behalf of the community. And that's where I stand, that we are the community, we pay taxes, and we should be, our voice should be heard so that the law is followed, as especially outlined by Michigan law. That's it.
All right, thank you for your comments. At this point, we will close the public hearing and move on to item number 6.2, an application for site plan approval to construct a 2,300 square foot industrial building at 3400 West Road. Mr. Menzer?
Changing of the guard here. Okay, appreciate your patience while we change the team here. This is a public hearing on a construction of a new building at 3400 West Road. So you might remember this site from very recently. It's immediately west of the existing commercial building or industrial building that was purposed for Attesteo that we talked about earlier this evening. So this project is on the heels of this, and it was forecasted by the applicants when they were here, the property owners that were here for the rezoning and for the site plan for Attesteo. This is the construction of a 23,000 about 23,000 square foot industrial building. It's divided approximately into 19,000 of industrial space and 3,800 square feet of office space. There's also a footprint on the building if you take a look at the site plan that shows future building. There's no, that I saw any detail on that. The applicant is on the call this evening. We'll be able to elaborate on that tonight. So let's see, the acres, it's a 2.4 acre site, pretty close to, similar to the size of the adjacent property. Has 330 feet of frontage along West Road, and it's in an area that has, that there are some other industrial uses in the surrounding area, and kind of how this little site has developed with there's a plastic manufacturer to the north, and then what was the 3GT Racing and Genelozzi Real Estate in the building to the east, now Attesteo, and then the tenants of that building will be moving. This is the new construction for the current tenants of 3410 West to be in this building. So the property is zoned, it was rezoned to M1 manufacturing last year in 2022. It was a conditional rezoning. There were several conditions placed on the rezoning related to the use of the property, and then some kind of operational standards that were put onto this property that are found in our office industrial park zoning district related to protections against odors and noise and particulate matter and that kind of thing. So this property is burdened by those limits to use. So however, the proposed use of the property does fit into the use categories that are limited under the conditional rezoning. One second. So what you're seeing in the staff memo, we just run through, there are six standards of review for a site plan. This is not associated, there's no site plan or special use permit or rezoning associated with this. It's purely a site plan. The process for this is like other site plans. It's the public hearing with the Planning Commission and then a recommendation, and that goes on to City Council for consideration. I just want to note a couple things here. If you've had a chance to take a look at the site plan, there is some trees that are proposed for removal and proposed for replacement. There's a plan in there that does show new trees. I made a note in the staff memo that we're going to need to see a lot more detail on what exactly is proposed. And they'll actually have to put together a landscape plan that's put together, that is, our ordinance requires a plan that's actually drafted by a registered landscape architect. So the applicant's going to have to provide that, and along with some more detail. The landscape plan just shows kind of generically deciduous trees and shrubs, so we'll need to actually have the species and the height and those kind of details. There are a couple of other things. I know that late in the day, so if you access the packet before this afternoon, late in the day we did get a letter of review from the engineering department, and most of the comments are pretty technical, but they are in there, and I just shared that with the applicant this afternoon, so the plan may need to be revised to address those comments, and that could be considered as a potential condition of approval, as well as feedback on that submitted stormwater management report. There is an error in this memo on page 6 under environmental protection. I was using the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission wellhead protection viewer, and in the map, if you look at it, there's a dot on this site that indicates there's a well. Well, if you look into the metadata for that dot, it's actually an adjacent site. So it's incorrect. I just didn't look deep enough into the report, so there is no well on this site, and I apologize for that error. I will read that report more closely in the future. The public art requirement of this project is not exempt from the public art requirement that has a total construction value over $500,000. It's pegged that they're pegging it at $1.3 million. So the applicant will either have to produce art in accordance with the Arts Commission standards in our ordinance, or provide a donation to the Public Art Fund of 1% of the project fee, which in this case would be, we have a maximum limit at $25,000. And they're indicating that they're going to work with the Arts Commission staff to install art on the site. And actually it's shown inside the building. The way that process works, I know the Planning Commission doesn't have a big role other than that you need to know that that the applicant is working with the city on the process. They're showing an area inside the building where there'll be art, or they've indicated on the art form that there'll be art inside the building. Where that goes from here is they work with staff from the Arts Commission. There are standards. There's an entire section of our ordinance dedicated to how that plays out, and they work with the staff and they come up with art, and it has to be acceptable to the Arts Commission. Or they provide a donation to the city that goes into the Public Art Fund, which is also all part of this public art requirement. In terms of zoning standards, this building meets setbacks, the parking lot meets setbacks. I did make a note that the building height is not specified on the plans or on the elevations, so the applicant's going to provide some more detail on that here soon, before the next meeting. Parking, this is a little unusual that we don't have a category that fits exactly in this. So what I did was use the office space in the building, because that's really the people that are driving to the site are going to drive cars. So there's approximately 3,800 square feet of office space. We're showing that results in 13 spaces. It's a little bit different on the cover page of the staff memo. Of the site plan. The engineer doubled that. They're assuming that the other side. So if you look at the floor plans, it's actually the second story in this building, within the building. One side is offices, and one side is like a lobby and break room and some other space. What their engineer is using as kind of a larger estimate is that all of that could eventually become office space, and that's the way they parked the site, so that you're seeing there's, I think, 26 spaces on that lot. I have half of that because only half of it's really being used for office right now, but it's parked for double, as if that space on the other side of the building could be repurposed to be office space as well. So that's why you see that the difference in the standards there. The property, or the applicant, has provided the required bicycle parking spaces. There are 2 loop spaces near the building. This project does not qualify, or does not, I guess, rise to the level of needing the electric car charging stations. That's for parking lots that are 50 or greater. Like I said, Mr. Gentilozzi can provide some more information on the future parking for future building. So it looks like there's another potential new phase potentially planned on this site. They can provide some more information on that. I do note that there's one part of the building, and I can see why there isn't curb and gutter proposed on that east side of the parking lot. One of the standard city requirements is curb and gutter around any parking areas. That east side of the parking lot where the future building is shown does not have the curb and gutter. Ultimately, the requirement is up to the city engineer, depending on the phasing. We'll have to work with the city engineer to determine whether or not she would require that the curb and gutter be installed now, or if it may be kicked to a future phase. So we'll have more information on that. As noted, there is some more information we need on a landscape plan. The applicant intends to provide that, whatever we would need, and spoke about that with him this afternoon. We also are missing some information on exterior lighting, so it's typical and required that in the site plan that we would receive information on any outside lighting, so fixtures that are on poles in parking lots, fixtures that are on buildings, so we would need to see exactly what those are. The output, we will receive a photometric plan that would tell because the standard is that you can't see, that you shall not be able to see visible light source from the property line. So no light whatever, but you wouldn't be able to see the light source. So a photometric plan will be able to show those values, and so that is forthcoming. And we'll also get information on like the height of the mounting height of the exterior lights that can't exceed 25 feet. Okay, so for next meeting, we've talked about and it might not be the next meeting, and we can talk about kind of sometimes when there's incomplete information in applications, it may be appropriate to approve with conditions, and the condition being that these items get fulfilled, and you can determine your comfort level with that after you hear from the applicant, and what information is able to be procured before the next meeting on the 22nd, which is coming up rather quickly. So what I noted was landscape plan, information, exterior lighting, and then building elevations that show the height of the building, and then denote the exterior materials, as well as any areas where signage might be provided. There's a lot of information in the packet. There's a narrative, there are plans. So if you have any questions about that, I'm certainly able to answer those. As noted earlier, Mr. Gentilozzi is on the Zoom call to answer any questions and to elaborate on the project. Thank you.
Peter, I just have a question. It's more a general question. It's about trees. I'm a Northwest tree hugger, and where I grew up had very specific rules. The city had about trees. So if for a new building you took down a 100-foot tree, you have to replace it with, I don't know, 50 trees or something, or like one tree does not equal another tree.
Right.
So when it said here, and I know the landscape plan is not done, but does the city have a rule about trees? If you may move 20 trees for a design or development of a new building, do they have to replace them with the same number, or does it have to be like, if you take down old growth and put in new growth, is there some sort of accommodation for that, or does East Lansing have rules about trees?
Absolutely. We don't have the trade-off provisions in the same way that you're describing, but there's a couple different things. So they're required to do a tree clearing or tree removal permit through the city engineer, and there's not a lot of standards associated with that. But as part of the landscape requirements, they're required to place trees I'm just pulling it up. I have most of this stuff memorized, but not all of it. Every 40 linear feet. Alongside yards and in front yards, public frontage and sides. So it's not as robust as the provisions you're describing, but we do have at least requirements for installation of trees.
Okay.
And the plan, I do want to note that the plan does note the sizes of the trees that are being removed. And the standard in our ordinance is 3.5-inch caliper for installation of new trees.
Couple quick questions. So as far as the letter from engineering, were there any major red flags that they noted or things out of the ordinary? I didn't get a chance to read it because it was a late ad.
Yeah, I didn't either, to be honest with you, and I'm not sure I'd understand it, but I will make sure that we have that information before, to identify any of those red flags before the next meeting.
I know you said it wasn't.
Mr. Gentilozzi will have that for you.
Okay. And then my last question is just I'm trying to clarify the parking that you had outlined. So is this being built with the full parking lot, I think you said it was 26 spots, or is it going to be limited to the 13 spots? You said there's potential for expansion on the site.
Yeah, sorry if that was confusing. What I was describing was the approach in determining the required number of spaces. The plan that you're seeing in front of you with the 26 spaces is exactly what they plan on building now. I think there are 7 additional spaces on the east bay there that could be potentially future, and we'll hear more about that future phase in a minute. But what I was walking through is how, so like when a land use is proposed that doesn't fit nicely into our land use categories, which I am not quite sure when the last time it was updated was. It could have been decades ago. I was just trying to describe like how we would arrive on a number. So I based it on the office space, and the logic there being that the only cars that are going to be on the side are going to be from people that drive and work in the office. Obviously, there's a garage there as well, and that sets a relatively low threshold of the 12 required spaces. They're building more than that on, and the applicant can elaborate further, but on the expectation potentially that the space in the building could become more space could be used as office that's now currently allocated for other uses like lobby and some other, like a break room and stuff.
Any other questions for Peter? Okay, I think at this point we will turn it over to the applicant, Mr. Gentilozzi, who is on Zoom, I believe.
Mr. Gentilozzi, you are unmuted and able to speak.
Indeed I am. Can you folks hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. So I do apologize for not being there in person. I had a previously scheduled conflict, and I was very close to making it there in person, but I am currently sitting in my car having this meeting, so I do apologize. Peter gave obviously a great explanation of what we're doing, and I think I'll start with sort of the lower hanging fruit in this case, which is the future building. And so when we looked at this site, we honestly asked ourselves, what else might this site support? And as you'll see in the pardon me, in the hatched area there, the sort of dashed line area, we look at about a 6,000 square foot future building for lease by a small trade firm, something like that, and have provided parking for it. If for some reason, we were to find another industrial user that wanted the space that we were in, they might prefer that space to be additional parking for a more industrial type use. So currently we don't have any plans to develop it, but that story is to tell you that the reason we show it and the reason that it even exists is that when we sized the retention pond, the stormwater basin that's on the site, we needed to have some idea of what future impervious surface may be present there. So we used a 6,000 square foot building, those attending parking spaces, to make sure that our pond was sized correctly for future development, so that we didn't have to go back and dig more pond or something like that. The number of parking spaces, as Peter mentioned, for the main building that's going on the site is certainly plenty for the use that we're anticipating, with additional space for further expansion in terms of the number of parking spots, the number of people that we could get in the building. As far as the landscaping plan goes, we do regret having to pull the trees that are on West Road. Those trees have been there since we started occupancy on that site, and we do love them, but unfortunately, given how tight the site is for the size of the building, and specifically the retention pond, we couldn't move the building far enough to the east, or if you're looking at the site plan, we couldn't move the building right far enough to keep those trees. However, it is our plan. There are existing cherry blossoms that sort of rim the backside of that site, and those were brought there in the 90s and planted by Nisui, the original user of that building. So it is our plan, working with the landscape architect, to utilize those trees that are on site and at least try to save them. Hopefully we're successful in that, but if not, certainly we will cover that more distinctly. As far as the species, we as an organization have, over the years, we've obviously landscaped a number of buildings, but we have in the last few years taken the approach that we believe that if we're going to plant trees on one of our sites, they need to be native Michigan trees. I had a specific ban on Bradford pears, for example, which are a very popular tree, but they're not really the greatest thing for the natural environment. We don't like them. So our commitment is to use native plantings of good quality in the right places to make sure that when we're done with the site, we'll hopefully have improved the landscaping overall. I think that probably covers most of the questions that were brought up during Peter's presentation. As always, I'm glad to answer anything else that you may want to ask.
I just have a quick question, Mr. Generalozzi. So as far as the issues that were raised by engineering, those are issues that you're currently reviewing and planning to work out with the engineering, correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct. We would have our response to those put together well before the upcoming meeting. And as I reviewed them, they certainly did seem to me to be important issues, but definitely of a more technical nature and things that our site engineers will need to detail in a drawing. And more than likely, it's going to be a standard detail that they use for all East Lansing projects. Nothing in the comments would be that I can see certainly would be detrimental to either have to meet or impossible to answer by the time that the commission would like to take action. So no, I certainly don't see any major impediments in the engineering comments.
Thank you. And one more question for me, because everybody needs to know, how tall is the building?
The building is the projection for the overhanging portion of the roof should be no higher than 25 feet.
All right, thank you. Any other questions
It would
from
be-
commissioners? Seeing none, we can open the public hearing for this item. Is there any members of the public that wish to step forward and comment on this particular item on the agenda? Seeing none, I do not believe we have any other members in the queue.
That is correct.
All right, so we can close the public hearing. I anticipate seeing one, potentially both of these items on the next meeting agenda, which is February 22nd. Moving on to item number 7, old business. Seeing none. 8, new business, also none. 9, are there any commissioner concerns?
I'll say.
Vice Chair Bowman?
Yes, thank you. Typically, we don't respond to the written communication, just sort of take it as is, and I felt that it was necessary that, at least in my opinion, to respond to the letter regarding the construction or the design of the proposed farmers market building. I think it was suggested that somehow it sort of was a cookie cutter design, or that it was could be placed just about anywhere, and I would submit, as a design professional myself, there's not a whole lot you can do with a pavilion type building. I don't subscribe to the idea that it has to be far out to be good. It can be quite simple and still be good, and that we're talking about a roof. In this case, it's got a cross gable on it. It's got posts that are probably 6 to 8 inch square, hollow steel sections. The real joy that I will derive from this site is the sort of the activities that go on with inside, and that I think it's an attractive enough building, and it doesn't have to be weird to be good. I also thought that the potential band shell, as small as it might be, could be very iconic, and there's maybe an opportunity to do something a little bit more daring there. But I've not seen any drawings beyond the schematic phase, this sort of illustration rendering, and that maybe there's something that's coming along shortly that will provide a little more detail. I like what I saw. I had some different thoughts about how it might be done differently, but nobody asked me to do that, so I will sort of not engage in that particular discussion. But I don't think that this is sort of something that was done en passant. That it's a pavilion building, and I think it's a good-looking pavilion building. On a related note, there's still a vacancy on the Planning Commission, so anybody that wants to make those comments publicly is certainly welcome to step up and fill out an application for the commission. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
That was a good segue.
Thanks.
Any other commissioner concerns? Seeing none, on to item 10, adjournment. I believe a motion is in order.
So moved?
All right, so moved by Vice Chair Bowman and seconded by Commissioner Denault. Is there any comment on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those nay. All those opposed nay. Seeing none, we are adjourned at 8:23 p.m.